Welcome back. Now, fish anesthesia is not a regular topic for many, but it is an important component for researchers as it is required for invasive studies such as surgical, that is for surgical preparations for physiological investigations where the fish must be held immobile for extended periods of time. But to expand on this unusual topic, we are joined in studio by a fisheries expert, that is Wilhelm Haihambo. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, it's quite a pleasure to have you, and also just to talk about such a topic that's not really widely known by a lot of people. But what are the traditional methods to anesthetize, fish in aquaculture, and why are the alternatives, being explored? Okay.
To start off, fish have been anesthetized using synthetic means. Mm-hmm. The currently used one is trichine methane sulfonate, which was found by many researchers to be non-biodegradable, mm-hmm. and having also impacts on the physiology of the fish and also the consumer on the end line. So then researchers have come up with methods now to how to minimize the impacts of this synthetic anesthetic, because mm-hmm. it's the only one that is approved currently by the FDA and also other regulating bodies. Yeah, so then they found that the only way they can mimic the impacts mm-hmm. is to put a restriction to say that, okay, if a fish is intended for human consumption, it can only be consumed after 21 days. But then that's not practical for a farmer. Let me say if I'm harvesting my fish today and mm-hmm. I want to sell to the market fresh fish, I cannot wait for 21 days, my product will go bad. So then they came a need for alternative means of anesthetizing fish in aquaculture. Mm. And the first one that was discovered was clove oil. I think it was borrowed from human medicine, where clove oil is used for toothache or something like that. Okay. Yeah, and then they found that it has sedative effects. So then a whole bunch of new studies came up now using mm-hmm. essential oils for their effectiveness, their cheapness, and they are also readily available. And if used in water, and the water is discharged in the environment, they are also biodegradable, which is environmental friendly. Yeah, so that's how the whole topic came by.
Interesting. It's very interesting for one that as humans we don't usually speak about a fish going through surgery and also having to go through such processes. So it's quite an interesting conversation that we're going to have here today. Let's talk about why do you use a coriander and eucalyptus essential oils for this study, and are there any specific properties that make them effective for fish anesthesia?
Yes, one of the things I have mentioned is that cheapness and also availability. Okay. Yeah, so as a fish farmer, or let me say maybe as a researcher, mm-hmm. you'd also want to use the most efficient method. And that also includes cost and also effective. Right. That also includes cost and availability. You don't want to be conducting a study mm-hmm. and you are told to wait maybe 2 months or 3 months to wait for a product coming elsewhere. Mm. And also that's also for a farmer, you don't want that. And in terms of cost, from empirical evidence is that I recently purchased MS222, which is trichine mesulfonate, the one that I mentioned, the only approved. For 10 gram, it costs close to 2,000 Namibian dollars. But then for coriander and eucalyptus, they are within $100 range. Right. Yeah. So they are also available in the local market. You can get them at any pharmacy, or you can, if you know a producer, you can, or someone who can produce eucalyptus oil for you. Yeah. It can be done because there is eucalyptus essential oil is produced in Namibia. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then these oils have been studied by other researchers, and they found that they possessed chemical properties that lead to anesthesia or sedation. Okay. And for eucalyptus is eucalyptol, mm-hmm. and for coriander essential oil is linalool oil. Okay. Yeah.
I think the question that I missed to ask you in the beginning is, why should a fish be put under anesthetics, or when is it that this practice is actually made or handled when it comes to this type of farming in fish?
So the first one from a human perspective is convenience. Yeah. So if you're on a farm and you're handling fish, and fish by nature they are designed in a way where they also have to protect themselves, right?
Yes, yes.
So they have all these fins, and let me say I want to weigh a fish, but then I have to touch it in its natural form,
right,
without being manipulated or so.
Right.
It will injure you. Yeah, it will injure you, and it's not convenient, and it will take you a whole deal of time.
Right.
So then you have to temporarily immobilize it,
yeah,
by using a sedative or an anesthetic, depending on your goal.
Okay.
So then it can be calm. You can work with it calmly and reach your objective. And in addition to that, there have been studies that have been done to determine if fish, it came from a whole bunch of upper animals, from us to the animals that we treat as lesser as us.
Right.
Yeah, so then they found that fish also stress. Yeah, so then this whole welfare study came to say that we need to protect the welfare of animals, and we have to, when we are dealing with fish and so forth, we have to make sure that we minimize stress, minimize pain. So because they are also animals like us, we need to treat them fairly. Yeah, so then that's how the anesthetics came by the uses of in fish.
Very well. Now, how does this, fish size or fish size, how does it affect their response to anesthetics, and perhaps why is it an important factor to consider in your research?
Okay, the nuance interplay between variables necessitates a multidimensional analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's if I want to get the end results of whether an anesthetic is effective in a certain fish, there are many factors that come into play.
Okay.
There is fish size, there is temperature, and there is also species. Okay. That's also a factor. So then how fish size came is that, like humans, when you go to the hospital, you get medication. They have different dosage depending on your age. Like children only take 1 cup or 1 spoon, adults can take 3 and stuff like that. So
That's
it's
right.
the same for fish now. So if you are dealing with juvenile fish, we call them fingerlings, you have to determine their exact dose as opposed to the bigger ones, and then you have to determine the optimum dose for the smaller size but as opposed to just using 1 dose for all of the sizes. Yeah, so that's how fish size came into play.
Very well. I'm quite learning a lot myself during this conversation. Let's talk about the role that temperature plays in fish anesthesia, and how it can actually impact the effectiveness of the essential oils that you get to test.
Okay, unlike humans, fish depend on their ambient environment for regulation of temperature inside. So
right.
then, if I was maybe in the northern part of the world, there wouldn't really be it wouldn't be necessary for us to have different doses because of the temperature we find ourselves. Right. But with fish, because their environment controls their temperature, you have to bring it into play because it's also a factor. So like these essential oils they are oils, and they are affected by temperature. If you pour it in water, in cold water, it doesn't dissolve at the same rate as it does in warm water. So then that also impacts the results or the outcome of the research and so forth. Yeah. So then you have to take into consideration temperature. So you can determine that, okay, just this amount of dose in warmer temperature is enough compared to in warmer temperature. And also, when an animal has a higher temperature, the metabolic rate increases, which can also impact the outcome of the research.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can using natural anesthetics such as the coriander that we were speaking about earlier, or the eucalyptus essential oils help make aquaculture more sustainable and eco-friendlier?
Yeah, that's one of the major goals of using this whole essential oil. Yeah, because they are natural, they are biodegradable. That's already sustainability. Okay. In case you have to discharge it into the environment, it won't have impacts on the environment. It will be broken down by nature. And also now, in terms of us human beings who are consuming this fish, you don't want to be consuming a fish and then the doctor is telling you maybe next year that you're having some problems that can be traced back to the fish, which was anesthetized with a certain type of chemical. So then we are trying to go into that direction where it's safe for everyone, safe for the fish. Doesn't have cumulative effects on the fish, doesn't have cumulative effects on the environment, and it also doesn't have a cumulative effects on the consumer. Yeah, there are still studies going on to really get the details. Yeah, as to say that, because I can say that eucalyptus or coriander doesn't have an impact on a person, immediate impact on a person. We are using eucalyptus during COVID-19, but then we also have to determine now the long-term impacts, because something can have a long-term impact, which can only probably be seen 10 years from now. You see people are getting sick, but it's maybe because they're consuming this. So still ongoing studies.
Very well. Your research seems very complex, and seems like there's a lot of work that actually goes into what you do. What challenges do you face during your research, especially when it comes to working with different types of fish, different sizes of fish, and even different temperatures of the water that where the fish is actually harvested or rather kept?
Okay. Dealing with, let me say, different sizes of fish is already a challenge on its own, because you also have to provide care, different levels of care. Compared, the smaller ones need more care. You need to change the water. You need to feed. You need to make sure the environment is within the ranges, their natural ranges, and also consistent with the research that you are conducting. And also adjusting the temperature has also been a challenge. Because I was doing a simulated experiment that wasn't within the ambient environment. I made a simulation in the lab and controlled the temperature with reference to their natural environment, using their limit, or their natural limit. That has also been a challenge. And also, in general, to say research is a challenging adventure on its own. You have, you have to go through all of these regulations. You have to depend on who to approve what. So that's the challenge I would say I have encountered, but overall it was a good experience. The
solutions, of course, are underway to overcome those challenges. Now, let's talk about the findings, or your findings, when it comes to anesthesia and the fish. How can these findings improve the quality of fish and the safety of fish as well, and also handling in aquaculture?
Okay. Let me go into the findings. What I found is that coriander essential oil, because how I did this study was I used MS222, which is trichine methyl-sulfonate, as a control, because despite it being environmentally unfriendly and unwanted, it really has effective outcomes. So I was using it as a control, and I was comparing it to the coriander essential oil and the eucalyptus essential oil. So my results came that coriander essential oil had no significant difference from trichine methyl-sulfonate. Like the outcomes, the results are comparable. They are fine. But when it came to eucalyptus essential oil, it had rather unpleasant outcomes. They weren't desirable. So then these outcomes now, let me lean towards coriander, which has with the positive results. So this now gives us an opportunity to kind of replace or have an alternative to MS222 in the local market, to say that, okay, I don't necessarily have to use the unsustainable means of anesthetizing fish anymore. Let me use coriander, which, again, I will reiterate this, it's like environmental friendly. It has also all these benefits that are added to it. And in addition, some studies have been conducted that it also has a benefit to the fish when it comes to immunity and all of that. So humans are becoming environmental conscious and also health conscious. And they want to use products or methods that are inconsistent with their consciousness, with what they want now, or how they understand the world. So we are in that line. We are in that line where we want sustainable things, and the outcomes of my research, or this research, is that we can use coriander essential oil to achieve this goal. Yeah, maybe not immediate, but it's positive that we are having a green light to keep going on and keep refining these essential oils until we are there.
Very well.
Yeah.
Lastly, I think my question is what breeds or what fish breeds, especially are popular here in the country that these anesthetics are used on?
Okay. My initial idea was to. It was an ambitious idea.
Ambitious, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I wanted to use these essential oils on 2 fish species. That's African catfish and also 3-spotted tilapia. Those are the common names. Yeah. So
and
then
also a very common delicacy.
Yeah, exactly. But then it was in terms of time, because my master's was 2 years. In terms of time, it wasn't practical because there's already time delayed by all of these processes.
Right.
So I had to sacrifice African catfish and deal with 3-spotted tilapia, which is readily available. And those are the fish that are predominantly available in the markets of Namibia. Like if you go to Epalela or Navivi or Kifi or somewhere, that's the first fish you get access to, the 3-spotted tilapia, 3-spotted bream, yeah, and that African catfish. Those are the predominantly available fish on the Namibian market.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that we are showing visuals of the fish being, a delicacy rather than, of course, what we are talking about in terms of handling them and, putting them on anesthetics to, of course, maintain them and, of course, improve their quality and safety in the water. But Wilhelm, thank you so much for sharing your expert knowledge in this field. Quite interesting topic that, of course, I think needs a lot of exploration. And we hope to sit down again, of course, find out more about, your findings and even reach out to you in terms of what actually is needed in the fishing industry and what we actually need to explore in this space. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was Wilhelm Haihambo, a fish expert who was talking to us about anesthetics and the fish. Very interesting topic, of course, and which you can catch this. If you have missed this, you can catch this on our NBC digital platforms, that is on YouTube, to, of course, learn more about this in this field. We are watching Namibia Connect on NBC. We have another interview right here on NBC right after a short break.